Welcome to American Medicine Today. I'm Kimberly Bonati alongside Ethan Youker and world-renowned orthopedic surgeon Dr. Alfred Bonati. We have quite an exciting show lined up for you. Let's get right to it. So a team of scientists have launched the first human trial in an attempt to grow a new liver inside of a human using lymph nodes. And this could really transform organ donation if successful. Joining us to discuss is Dr. Michael Hufford, CEO of Lygenesis, a Pittsburgh-based biotech company behind the research. So first off, thank you for joining us, Dr. Hufford.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate your interest.
Certainly. And it almost sounds like science fiction. I mean, how really do you turn liver cells from a living donor into an actual functioning liver for a patient using lymph nodes?
We are living in a remarkable time when it comes to biomedicine and innovation. And at Lygenesis, we're leveraging a lot of natural biology. So all of us walk around with 500 lymph nodes spread throughout our body. Those naturally help us fight off infection. So when you get a cold, you might feel that they enlarge. And that's those lymph nodes creating T cells to help you fight infection. We're using that same biology, but now we're engrafting our cellular therapy into the lymph node, which remarkably over time, those cells will overtake the lymph node and become a functioning ectopic organ that we've demonstrated in our preclinical studies are capable of rescuing animals from otherwise fatal liver disease. So we're hoping to do that same thing in patients with end-stage liver disease now.
And I understand that basically this technique has been around for like a decade. Is that correct?
That's correct. It was originally discovered by my chief science officer, Dr. Eric Lagasse, who's also a co-founder of Lygenesis. Dr. Lagasse works at the McGowan Institute for Regenerative Medicine here at the University of Pittsburgh. He was the one who initially discovered that you could use the lymph node to bioreact these various different tissue and organ types, the liver being the most advanced, but he's also shown the same principle holds for the development of an ectopic kidney for patients with end-stage renal disease, an ectopic pancreas for patients with type 1 diabetes, as well as an ectopic thymus that has important and exciting implications for aging as well.
This case that we do with the lymph node and the liver, how the lymph node will increase in size or will it just become active small?
That's a great question. So what we've shown in at least the preclinical studies to date is when you engraft these hepatocytes or liver cells into these lymph nodes, first they start to organize themselves and they form the various constituent parts that form a liver. Over time, the lymph node will actually disappear, and what you're left with will be this ectopic liver. The size of that liver is determined by the severity of the liver disease, but it's certainly the case, for instance, in liver transplant. When you go to transplant a patient, very often the lymph nodes adjacent to the liver can even be the size of your fist. So very often in end-stage liver disease, the liver has shrunk, it's become fibrotic. And one of the things that often takes up the space in the gut tends to be these enlarged lymph nodes, which we're now trying to leverage for more of a therapeutic effect.
And why that happens, that lymph node doesn't behave like a liver again. These lymph nodes become bigger when you have the liver disease. And you tell me also that the liver the lymph node will increase in size, but when that happens on that lymph node that is already big inside trying to save because the incompetent liver, why doesn't that lymph node already replace the liver in that patient that is their own lymph node?
Sure, yeah. In end-stage liver disease, those lymph nodes are really responding to the inflammation and fibrosis of the diseased liver. So they're really serving no therapeutic function.
Uh-huh.
By engrafting the hepatocytes into the lymph node, those liver cells detect the diseased liver. So as you know, each diseased liver is actually emanating dozens of pro-growth factors. The liver naturally does try to regenerate itself, but an end-stage liver disease is unable to do so. So what we do by engrafting our cell therapy into the lymph nodes of these patients, those cells are then exposed to those pro-growth signals, respond by organizing themselves into these ectopic livers that then vascularize and help to filter the patient's blood, which hopefully will help with their end-stage liver disease.
Can you inject those liver cells directly on the large lymph node, or is already too damaged by the infection or the damage that that has by itself?
That's a great question. So one of the innovations at Lygenesis is we use an outpatient endoscopic ultrasound procedure to engraft our cells. So we're going down through the mouth of the patient and then imaging lymph nodes adjacent to the gut wall. And then we inject our cell therapy into those lymph nodes. The benefit of that, of course, is that it's an outpatient procedure done under light sedation. For patients with end-stage liver disease, up to 50% of them don't even qualify to make the transplant list because they're simply too ill and won't survive the procedure. So one of the things we're excited about is we're really giving an option for those patients that otherwise would not even be eligible to make the liver transplant wait list because we're using a route of engraftment of our cell therapy that is such low medical risk that way.
Oh, incredible. That's fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
Well, and Dr. Hufford, so you just basically entered human trials. Can you talk about that process? Is it just one person? Is that why it's singular trial, or are there multiple people involved?
So with the FDA, you have to work with them to agree that the safety and potential efficacy of a therapy warrants moving forward into a clinical trial. So we work closely with them on the design of this first clinical trial. It's with 12 patients. And so these 12 patients have end-stage liver disease. We're currently enrolling patients at Houston Methodist in Houston, Texas. And so we transplanted our first patient just last week. We were told they're doing very well. And so very excited about that. So the total trial will just be 12 patients. If that looks good, then we'll go on for larger trials and hopefully eventually receive FDA approval, which, if approved, could really turn a chapter in the history of medicine by turning transplant wait lists into a thing of the past.
Where do you get the cells? Those cells are the same cells of the sick liver that you are using, or from where are you getting the liver cells?
Yeah, great question. So we're using donated but unmatched organs. So here in the U.S., about a quarter of donated livers are not matched for transplant, but they've been screened and found to be safe and are ready to go. So what we're doing is we're taking some of those donated livers that are otherwise unmatched for transplant. We use those as the source of cells. And part of the beauty of that is, as you know, today, one donated organ treats just one patient. Using our approach, one donated liver can treat up to 75 patients. So it's really upending the supply-demand ratio when you think of organ donation that way.
But you can go ahead and get the liver cells on the early stage of degeneration and start to see the nodes.
Yeah, so we're taking otherwise healthy livers that have been donated for transplant but unmatched, and we process those livers through a procedure that results in our cell therapy and then transplanted into patients. So they have to be blood type matched, and they will be on immune suppression. We hope eventually to be able to avoid that with future versions of our therapy, but today they'll be on immune suppression.
Okay, my question still is this. If you have a liver that is regenerating partially when in the initial stage of the failure for the liver, then you can take those cells that they are trying to regenerate, and then you don't have the problem on trying to do cells that they can be not suitable for the transplant, and use those cells directly to the lymph nodes, the ones that they are trying to regenerate.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So we have considered that. Typically in end-stage liver disease, and what my liver transplant colleagues tell me is that because the liver is so fibrotic, even touching it can lead to really potentially catastrophic bleeding. So the risk of going in and trying to sample cells from the diseased liver doesn't really outweigh from a risk-benefit perspective, that procedure. So for now, we're relying on these donated organs.
Okay, great.
When do you see this actually being available for the public? Like when, once you're past the trials and it's actually being implemented?
Yeah, drug development takes longer than any of us would like. This trial will likely last for the next 20 months or so. We'll have to run at least one more trial after that. If all that goes well, then in an ideal scenario in the next 4 to 5 years, this therapy, if shown to be safe and effective, and if FDA approved, could eventually be available to folks. But we are several years out from that yet.
And where can they learn more?
They can learn more if you visit either our website, like genesis.com, or also our clinical trial is also listed on clinicaltrials.gov, which is a great resource for patients trying to learn more about experimental therapies.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Michael Hufford, for being on the program.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you.
Keep us updated on the progress.
Will do.
Stay tuned. We'll have more after the break. You're watching American Medicine Today.
The loss of coordination in my legs, I'd trip over my feet, end up flat in the concrete. Dr. Bonati to me was God sent. Walk like that in a while. I don't remember how long. I didn't have to make a massive lifestyle change. I noticed today that I could sit and stand up without a cane. I would have to give it excellent and above my expectations.
Visit AskBonati.com.
My name is Dara and I'm the broker owner of Realty One Group Advantage. I have all kinds of hobbies. I play racquetball. I'm starting to play pickleball. I love to play backgammon, and I'm a magician. At the beginning of 2017, I was getting into bed very gently. I didn't jump, I didn't twist myself. I just got into bed. And as soon as I laid down, I felt this piercing pain in my right hip. When that pain started in my hip, and I got up, it was pretty much confined to my hip. But through the weeks, through the months, it started radiating down the right side of my right leg. It went eventually all the way and was almost grabbing my heel and pulling it up. I couldn't sit in a car for more than 20 minutes. The pain would just be too bad. The best experience I had was when I was standing. So I was on my feet whenever I could be. If there was a meeting and we were talking business, I would be walking around the table because it didn't hurt when I walked. But as soon as I sat down, as soon as I laid down, the pain would come back. It was very difficult to sleep. It was not fun. I couldn't play racquetball. I couldn't do any of the things that I enjoyed doing.
Dara's doctor prescribes step therapy, which is a series of conservative treatments, including massages, pain medications, and physical therapy. Nearly a year passed as he continued struggling with no relief from pain, and that was making him desperate.
Really, it was the heating pad that gave me a little bit of relief. Cold didn't seem to give me very much relief. Stretching, the physical therapist told me to stretch. So I did all the laying down on your ground, bend your knees up and rocking side to side, pulling your knee from right to left and left to right. Whatever I did, still the pain was there. Once the pain started at the beginning of 2017, we tried the physical therapy, we tried massage therapy, structural energy therapy. We tried everything. And by the end of 2017, I was practically giving up. I never had any thoughts of suicide or anything like that, never in my life. But it kind of made me wish that I might prefer that alternative than living with that pain. That went on for almost a year.
At the urging of a friend, Dara made an appointment with the Bonati Spine Institute for an evaluation with Dr. Bonati.
Well, I arrived at the Institute. They greeted me warmly. It wasn't more than 20 minutes that I was seeing Dr. Bonati. He scheduled the MRI at the Institute. It was a separate building. So we went over to the other building. I was with my wife. I had the second set of MRIs done. Within about 20 minutes, I was seeing Dr. Bonati again, and he was showing me visually where I was having problems on my back. Dr. Bonati asked me where I was feeling pain, and I described it in the hip and going down the legs, and then he showed me how the area where the pain was going was relating to the images in the MRI. The consultation with Dr. Bonati made me feel very confident that I was in the right place. The reputation of Dr. Bonati made me feel confident that I was in the right place. And the treatment by the staff was just wonderful.
The exclusive Bonati Spine procedures are performed incrementally using conscious IV sedation. While in a twilight state, patients are encouraged to communicate with their surgeon to ensure the source of their pain is eliminated. Due to the patented tools and techniques used in the Bonati Spine procedures, only a small incision, roughly the width of a thumbnail, is required. This drastically reduces the risk of infection and allows for a quicker recovery time.
Well, it was explained to me what the process was going to be, and interestingly, there was a monitor down as I was laying on my stomach. There was a monitor on the floor or somewhere below me that I was looking at. But just in front of that monitor, my wife was sitting there and watching the process also. It was explained to me ahead of time, but it was still kind of interesting when you're there. And within 2 hours after the surgery, I got up on my own 2 feet, no crutches, nothing. I walked out to my car and my wife took me home. It was pretty quick and very interesting and very effective.
Patients are often surprised at how quickly they can return to their daily routine after receiving the targeted Bonati Spine procedures without the need for uncomfortable braces or suffering through weeks of physical therapy. After leaving the Bonati Spine Institute, patients are told to walk a few times a day to aid their body in the healing process.
My work is not strenuous. I'm a real estate broker. My agents come to me for my help, so I'm not even going out and showing houses. So it was an easy go back to work experience for me. I was pretty much normal. Yeah, I was able to sit in the car, drive, without worrying about the pain kicking in. I was on the racquetball courts as soon as I could get there.
Dara happily recommends anyone struggling with neck or back pain to contact the Bonati Spine Institute.
I kind of look at him as the savior, and not only would I refer other people to him, but I have.
It's been years since his Bonati Spine procedures, and Dara is still working every day and playing racquetball regularly, all pain-free.
Now there's no limitation as to what I do. I do everything. Fully active. I don't have any more back pain.
To see more stories of recovery just like this, search for the Bonati Spine Institute on YouTube, Rumble, Roku, Amazon's Fire TV, Google Play Store, and Apple's App Store. If you have any comments or questions, contact us at the numbers below. Or you can tweet at Dr. Bonati using the hashtag American Medicine Today or hashtag AMT. We would like to hear from you.